Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Cordova, and I am a Senior Assistant Director within the Board of Admissions at Boston College. And on behalf of everyone here, we would like to welcome you to Boston College and congratulate you on your recent admission to BC. Tonight, I am joined by 5 incredible leaders who are going to tell you a little bit more about the communities they serve at BC and ways how they support them so that all students can thrive at Boston College. Now, this webinar is recorded, so you can reference it at any point. And after introductions, we'll start to answer your most frequently asked questions. We received a lot of your questions through your registration form, and so we've tried to incorporate those questions into this presentation. If any questions come up that we're not able to answer right away through the Q&A, you can add those questions to the Q&A feature that is available at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So you can see that Q&A feature on there, and you can type in those questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to have the guest speakers introduce themselves. So we'll start with Caroline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Davis. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Director for Student Outreach and Support here at BC, and I just am finishing up my 6th year here at BC.
Perfect. Moving on to Claire.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Claire Johnson-Allen. I am a clinical social worker and the Associate Director of the Women's Center here at Boston College. I am completing my 1st year here as an employee, but I did complete my master's here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Craig?
Hi, all. I'm Craig Burns. I am from the University Counseling Services, the Director of the Counseling Service here at BC. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I've been here for about 15 years. Yeah, happy to be here with you all tonight.
We're so happy you're here as well. Cathy?
Hi, my name is Cathy Duggan. I'm the director of the Conicelli Family Learning Center here at Boston College, and I have been with the Connors Center since we opened about 30 years ago.
Great, thank you, Cathy. And Rory?
Hi, welcome to BC and congratulations on your admissions. My name is Rory Stein and I'm the Associate Director of Student Disability Services, and I've been here for about 2.5 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. So we'll get right into it. One of the first questions that I want to ask all of you to answer is if you can talk a little bit more about how your offices try to create a safe and inclusive environment at BC. As you all know, our mission and vision as a university is Cura Personalis, taking care of you as a whole person. So I would like to just hear a little bit more about how your offices are able to achieve that role. Whoever can start first. Who's ready? All right.
I can start.
All right, go ahead.
So at the Disability Services Office, we provide academic and disability-related housing accommodations for students with disabilities. My office provides accommodations to students with chronic illnesses, physical disabilities, and mental health conditions. BC is a little bit unique in the sense that my office doesn't provide accommodations for ADHD and learning disabilities. That's handled by Cathy Duggan's office at the Connors Family Learning Center. And so a few examples of the type of accommodations we provide. For academic accommodations, we can provide assistance with note-taking, extended time on exams to be administered in a distraction-reduced environment. For students with blindness, for example, we have mobility orientation campus trainers that we contract through the Carroll Center for the Blind. For students with hearing impairments, we have CART reporters, and CART stands for Communication Access Real-Time Translation. And what that entails is having a very high-level typist in class with the student with the hearing impairment, typing everything that a professor is saying, so the student who's sitting next to the CART reporter can read along and follow along with the lecture. For housing accommodations, we can provide single rooms for students with severe asthma and allergies. We can provide air conditioning. As you can imagine, that's a pretty popular accommodation. And we also provide wheelchair accessible, or make sure that all of our events, classrooms, and all campus events are wheelchair accessible. So that's just sort of a brief overview of what we provide at Disability Services.
Thank you, Rory. Caroline?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. So part of what our office is doing to help make BC a more inclusive place is really working with our LGBTQ students. There's two parts of that. Am I going?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. So one part of that is working with students directly. So we offer a number of different programs and services, including a peer mentoring program for incoming first-year students. So we match students up with an upper class mentor. We have monthly meetings and dinners. And so there's both getting to know each other and creating community, but then also offering some mentorship throughout that first year. We run weekly discussion groups for students. We run an annual retreat for LGBTQ students where we take students off campus and engage with queer staff and faculty. And the other part of what we're really doing around supporting queer and questioning students is working with staff and faculty, student leaders, student groups, undergraduate student government, to help make sure that folks are educated about issues pertaining to the queer community, making sure that people can be inclusive, are thinking about how they're designing their programs, how we're doing things in the residence halls, making sure that students are included and welcomed at all levels.
Thank you, Caroline. And Cathy, can you hear me now? Cathy, okay, let me try unmuting you because we lost you there for a second. Can you speak now, Cathy?
Yes.
Perfect, Cathy. If you can tell us a little bit more about your office and the services provided.
Okay, so the Conicelli Family Learning Center serves all students at Boston College, both undergraduate and graduate students, and we provide a wide range of academic support services. One of the nice things about our learning center is that it is quite inclusive in that everybody is included and nobody is excluded. We serve students that maybe are struggling in a class, they're quite bright and they're getting an A-, so they want to get an A. We also serve students that are doing poorly in classes and trying to get a better grade. We do tutoring in a lot of academic areas, particularly where there's a high demand. Our two busiest subjects are writing and calculus, so students can come in and meet with peer tutors to get assistance in those classes. We also provide academic coaching, helping students with time management, prioritization, organization, and a lot of our freshmen take advantage of that. As Rory mentioned earlier, we provide accommodations and services for students with learning disabilities and ADHD and work with faculty around implementing those accommodations. And we also have a test proctoring center where students will come in and some of them will have their exam accommodations at the center instead of reporting to class for an exam.
Perfect. Craig and then Claire.
Sure, thanks. So in counseling services, we serve all students, similar as Cathy said, undergrad and grad. We are available 24/7 year-round in some degree to all students for our emergency service. If any student is ever experiencing a psychological crisis or an emergency or any sort of safety issue. But really the bread and butter of what we do is meeting with students either individually or in groups, typically in scheduled appointments through the course of the year for anything from relatively minor adjustment issues, struggling in a class, to relationship issues, to family distress, to more significant anxiety, depression, or traumatic experiences. We have clinicians who represent a pretty broad range of identities themselves, which we think is really important to help a broad range of students feel comfortable in meeting with a therapist. But all of us take a great pride in trying to be both very well culturally informed and responsible in the work that we do to work with everybody with whatever they are bringing for a clinical presentation as well as their own identity features and personal experiences that may make the experience at BC better or more difficult in some ways. We have worked over a number of years to try to really expand our resource. There is no limit in the number of sessions that any student may come to in counseling services, although certainly the average number of sessions for students who do come in is very typical with most colleges, about 6 or so. And really what we're trying to do is maintain access for all at any point. We found that over the course of a typical undergrad's career, about 40 to 50% of students will come in at least once to counseling services. So I think what that shows is that there's a very low bar, and we take great pride in trying to improve every student's ability to really get the most they possibly can out of the university in all of its features, as we say, talking about cura personalis.
Thanks, Craig. Claire?
So hi, Claire here, and she series, my apologies for leaving that out previously. So in the Women's Center, we mainly focus on the work of gender empowerment, and the center is open to any and all peoples regardless of gender identity, expression, orientation, etc. A lot of our programming focuses on building connections within not only a community for those who are female identified, but also building community outside of that. So we have things that are a bit lighter in terms of services, like DISH, which is a monthly get together where there's a conversation around a meal or a food item. And one of the recent ones we've had this year was tacos and transitions. That was done in the fall. And then we also recently did one this month in April that was soup and social distancing. So as you can tell, we like our alliterations. We also offer Thrive, which is a mentoring program where we pair groups of sophomore female identifying students with senior students for the purposes of mentorship. We also have our RISE program, which is pairing seniors with professional faculty and staff. We also run our bystander intervention program out of the Women's Center, which has to do with encouraging peers to look out for one another when they're in the life of campus, and being aware of their surroundings and of each other's surroundings as it pertains to potential for sexual violence and sexual assault. And then we also have our sexual assault network, which is available to students 24/7 during the course of the academic year. And that is a confidential resource that is available for students who have questions or issues or struggles related to sexual misconduct, harassment, anything of those natures. And oftentimes, really for that, we get calls from friends who are concerned about their friends, as opposed to survivors necessarily. But that's just a smattering of some of the programs that we offer through the center.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone. And I know that all of you are proactively responding to the needs of our students along the way. Have you noticed any trends with maybe students on campus or what's going on in the world or in our country that has led you to introduce new programming or new ways of responding to these students or issues? Craig?
Sure. I think there's two parts to that question. One is, over the last couple of years, what kind of trends have we noted and how have we responded? And I think what's probably on many people's minds is, how are we responding to the current pandemic and the world as we know it? So I'll take a stab at both of them, but we'll see where we go. The most notable trend in terms of mental health of really the country as a whole, but particularly noted among college-age populations, has been a significant spike in anxiety issues for many years now. There is a dramatically higher percentage of students coming in with significant anxiety issues than even 10, never mind 20, 30 years ago. And along with that, there is a greater feeling of need to be able to engage with somebody very quickly. So we've done a couple of things. We've developed some specific groups to cope with anxiety and provide some skills in working with anxiety. We've also added a type of session and a type of contact that we call same-day consultation, which is essentially designed to allow students to come in that same day, to call in that morning and schedule an appointment without having to say, I'm in crisis, I'm at risk of harming myself, which a typical emergency appointment would be, but to come in and to work on some specific skills that might help you deal with the distress in the moment. So that's one way that we're dealing with the longer term trend. The current situation, the current trends are that obviously here we all are, right? We're on Zoom, we're all remote, we're all unsure about what's coming up next. And what that means, that uncertainty means that we're even going to be more anxious. We're going to be more unsure about what we do and how we do it. And what that means is that we need to have new ways to engage with students. So, well, what are we doing again right here? We're meeting with people over an online format. In counseling services, as well as in many other offices around the university, we've built in a series of online support groups for students who are either still on campus or at home. We're also building in some online mindfulness meditation groups, as well as a series of other groups designed for specific populations. Because we know that even for those on campus, right, they still can't come in. And we would anticipate, whether we're on campus or not in the fall next year, that we're still going to be running some form of this kind of group and providing access to all students, no matter where they are or what their particular issues are.
Thank you, Craig. Anyone else would like to add or comment?
Sure, I can.
Cathy, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
It's the same trend that we are noticing that Craig is mentioning about the anxiety that we've seen the students coming into the Learning Center, and we see the anxiety really around their coursework. And these are obviously very smart students that are very capable of being able to handle the coursework. So instead of offering just content-based tutoring, we really have started that academic support where we'll talk with students about how is your class going, what does this professor expect, what does this mean, how do you really read that syllabi. So all the soft skills that one needs to know that students, I think, sometimes become so anxious that they don't stop and slowly take a look at what they really need to be doing. And so we've actually incorporated a lot more what we call coaching because of that.
Excellent. Anyone else would like to add, answer this question?
Well, just briefly, our bystander intervention program is typically done in the residence halls. We start in the fall semester with the Newton campus residencies, and then make our way through the Chestnut Hill residence in the spring semester. Understandably, we were cut short, and so we have actually moved the rest of that module online. So for example, for current students who have not yet had that training, we were able to adapt that to an online format so that we will continue to keep the trend of BC being a campus where every single class that is currently on campus will have received this very important prevention training.
Perfect. And just to repeat the question is how are the offices supporting and proactively responding to the changes that are coming up? And I know, Caroline, you had your virtual hand up. So you wanted to add?
I mean, I was just going to say, I think that for LGBTQ students in particular, that we have been working really hard to make sure students know that there's support on campus. I think that for many folks, BC can be a huge place compared to where they came from. It can be like hard to navigate. Like there's almost too many resources. And so making sure that students know what we're doing, how to get involved with us. You'll see us at the student involvement fair. You know, we're very out and proud and present. And so making sure that students are where there's a place that is there for them. No matter what might be going on kind of in a greater climate outside of BC.
Great, awesome. All right, so there is a question coming through the Q&A box right now, and it seems to be a two-part question. I have an autoimmune condition. Is the school considering online classes for the fall in light of COVID-19? So for students who have been admitted, all of you who are listening right now, we are thinking of you. We are trying to monitor regulations from the World Health Organization and the state to respond effectively and to keep you first and foremost safe. So please continue to monitor the FAQs that we've posted on the admissions website, and feel free to reach out to your individual admissions representatives or our office for more answers. But please know that every single Wednesday and every single day, as we have news, we're trying to communicate with you and let you know what the course of action will be. In terms of the first part of the question with the autoimmune condition, we are going to be working with you and your medical providers and of course the University Health Center to be able to support you along the way. And I would actually encourage you to reach out to University Health Center to talk about your individual scenarios, so that way you're preparing accordingly. Is there anything or anyone else would like to add when it comes to this question? Rory?
Yes, so that is a condition that we provide accommodations for, and we do have a number of students with autoimmune conditions who are registered with the Disability Services Office. And the type of accommodations we provide are some negotiated extensions on out-of-class assignments in the event that you experience a flare-up of your condition right before a deadline and need a few extra days to complete an assignment. We have some students whose flare-ups are very severe and so need some medically excused absences if they're so debilitated that they can't make it to class. And so it's really kind of, we're eager to hear what your specific needs are above and beyond those types of accommodations. You might need other things that we can provide, but just know that there is assistance that you would qualify for through the Disability Services Office if that's something you're concerned about.
And Rory, we'll be sharing your contact information as well as everyone's contact information on this panel today. So perfect, Great. Thank you. In terms of accommodations, Rory and Cathy, can you talk a little bit more about how students will go about continuing on with 504 plans as well as getting extra time? How does that all come together when they get to campus?
Sure.
Cathy?
Students should get in contact with us over the course of the summer would be ideal. And if you go to either of our websites, either the Conice Family Learning Center or the Disability Services Office, and we kind of connect them to each other, we list our documentation guidelines and what our requirements are that Boston College requires. So, you know, for the most part, we want to see a copy of that 504, so we'll know what types of accommodations you received in high school. If you received accommodations on the ACT or the SAT, we'd like to see verification of that. We also would like to see the most recent documentation of your condition, regardless of whatever that might be. And we ask that that documentation be recent. And definition of recent really varies depending on the specific condition. For learning disability or ADHD, we want to see something that was done in high school. So if your last documentation is, you know, from when you were in 6th grade, that's not going to be enough and you would need to update it. Rory has information, I know, on his website about the recency requirements, and that varies sometimes a little bit by disability as well. But all of that information would get submitted to one of our 2 offices. It would be reviewed by a committee of people who would take a look at your accommodations history, your disability, what you're requesting, and then would kind of make some approvals and follow up with you. We like to meet with students in person. That may not be possible over the summer, but we certainly would talk to you by phone and ask you to come in and meet with us in person once you're on campus.
And our process is a little bit different than Connor's in the sense that we have an online registration form that we have students fill out. There's a place on the form to attach medical documentation. We'll take a look at that and then reach out to you to schedule an intake appointment. And then we'll be in touch regarding the approval process and the implementation of accommodations from there.
Great. As a follow-up, there is a question coming through about tutoring services, specific academic support, such as note-taking, group studying. Can you add more comments on that?
Sure. Both of our offices provide note-taking services to students if they qualify. And then in terms of tutoring, we do some group tutoring. So sometimes we'll have, like, I know I have a student this past semester who did a group tutoring study session for an economics class at the Connors Center. Was there more than that? I'm trying to remember. Group tutoring.
Note-taking. Yes, yeah, study tips. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do all of that in the Learning Center.
Wonderful. Great. Awesome. So now, Caroline, we do have a question coming through about the experience of being LGBTQ plus at a Catholic Jesuit institution. Can you address that a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, this is a great question. So I think, you know, we start from a place that Craig actually referenced earlier in this webinar, which is caring for the whole person and believing that all people are worthy of dignity, respect, and caring. And so we as a community believe that we embrace all students regardless of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. But that doesn't mean that there isn't sometimes tension. And I think that students really experience that the most in being unsure of if spaces are necessarily going to be safe for them. I think that in particular, students that I've spoken with have been worried about entering spaces that are specifically faith-oriented spaces, worried that they will not be welcome in those spaces. And we've worked really hard to make sure that students know that they are welcome in all spaces on campus. Campus ministry, for instance, has worked with our GLC, which is the GLBTQ GLC leadership group from UGBC, and they have worked with campus ministry for the past 3 or 4 years, and over the last 2 years developed some faith sharing groups that are specifically for LGBTQ students as a way to invite queer students into that space, but also mark that those spaces are for all people. I think that we work hard to make sure that students know that staff and faculty are welcoming, but I also think that that can be a struggle for some students to figure out, you know, if someone doesn't kind of openly talk about that, is this a safe place for me to talk about my gender or sexual orientation? And that's something that we talk with students about all the time.
Thank you. Craig, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess really only one thing. So I think Caroline said almost all of it. The question did specifically say something about the administration's perspective. And I guess what I can say is all of us here are in some way a part of administration, right? We're not necessarily faculty. We all are part of the face of BC and the people that you will interact with day to day. And so I can answer personally, and I think it's true for all of us here, and quite frankly, everybody that I know at BC, that we work very hard to be very open and welcoming for everybody. And whether this is as an institution, a Jesuit Catholic institution or not, quite frankly, doesn't change that in regards to sexual orientation or gender. So I just want to be really clear and transparent on that for our administrative perspective.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And there's some great resources, and I hope that you're able to visit the LGBTQ plus website where Caroline is listed as a resource. And Caroline, maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of those resources, retreats, and ally support that is available.
Sure. So our website, so it's bc.edu/LGBTQ, lists all the programs that we do. So the programs I've talked about earlier, the mentoring, the support groups, the retreat, the Spectrum retreat. We also have monthly community dinners where we meet with the student groups on campus and just straight up like have dinner. and hang out and get to know each other and build community. We do some educational programming partnered with other offices. So we, last year, an example was had a panel of alums come back and talk about being out in the workplace and what does that mean for them in various industries. So I think there's like an array of programming that happens. Also listed on there are all of the student groups. And as the student leaders for those student groups get updated, they'll be all updated. So you'll know who the actual leaders are going to be for next year. Right now, it's still this year's leaders who you are welcome to contact. And then also there's a list of staff and faculty there who have committed to be in our resource guide. And I think almost all staff and faculty can be resources for you on campus, but the staff and faculty listed there have specifically said, I'm volunteering to be a resource for a queer questioning student, to identify that I can be a person who is safe for them to come talk to about their experience. And then students are welcome to come meet with me or my grads anytime. So I probably meet with, I don't know, a couple students a week who are either just coming to say like, hey, I'm gay and I want to tell you about it. And I'm like, okay, wonderful. Or students who might be having a really hard time, either figuring out who they are or figuring out how to tell their family or their friends or how to navigate kind of social circles on campus. And we're kind of well-versed in supporting students through all of that.
Thank you so much. Now, speaking of retreats, Claire, I know that the Women's Center also has some wonderful retreats, and I know that you probably want to share more about that now.
I can speak to our most recent retreat. This year we had a really wonderful graduate assistant by the name of Courtney Wright, who will be headed off to do her PhD. So we're certainly sad to lose her, but she did leave a great legacy with the creation and implementation of the Black Women Matter retreat. It was born out of a lot of research and a lot of empirical and anecdotal data and information that showed that this was a population that needed to be better served on campus. And so a retreat has been created. It will be October 16th through the 18th this coming fall, and it is open to freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And it's a time away from campus to focus on what it means to be a Black identified person on campus, and how we can support one another, and how you can access other faculty who identify the same way. And it's really been quite an amazing implementation, and we look forward to carrying it forward. Outside of the retreat, we also have several major themed weeks and events that are also run out of the center. So our Women's Summit happens every year at the beginning of the spring semester, and it's a massive one-day summit that has lots of workshops, keynote speakers. This year, Brittany Packnett, who was very instrumental in the Black Lives Matter movement, was the keynote. And we also have our Love Your Body Week, which tends to happen in the fall as well. And that's, again, another way to celebrate and learn about healthy body image, different ways in how people identify beauty and what that can look like for everyone. And then also we have our Care Week, which tends to happen in the spring. And that's the week that is centered around sexual assault and prevention and awareness and support of survivors.
Thank you so much for sharing. Some of you have already talked about ways how students can get involved with your offices. So maybe if you can just mention it one more time for the students who are asking if there are any opportunities to get involved, become mentors, or receive mentorship through your offices. Who would like to start?
I can start.
Go ahead.
If I could. So our center is a student-driven center. It was created in the 70s because students at the time felt that it needed to exist, and so they made it happen. And we very much take that to heart at the core of our mission. So a lot of the programs that we have now exist because students of the past felt that they needed to. Our center is run by student staff. We have about 8 to 10 students on staff who apply at the end of each academic year for the following year. And they work on all of the different projects and programs that come out of the center. In terms of outside of being on center staff, how can people get involved in the center? I say this more times, just come into the center. Our doors are open. We are open 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, and it's in Maloney Hall. It's kind of right in the center of campus, and it's a really great place to be able to rest and relax, have a nap. On Mondays, we have cookies. There's puzzles and coloring pages, and also sometimes students just come in and do work in a space that's not the library and not their dorm and not, you know, some of the food establishments on campus. So just come in, and that's a really simple way to get involved. Another way to get involved, some of those major events that I mentioned, the Women's Summit, Love Your Body Week, Care Week, we always are looking for volunteers and people to help staff the different events for those weeks, and work on those events is another way to get involved. And I believe there was a question in the chat about a mentorship program specifically to meet the needs of first-year students. And at this time, we do not have one that is specific to first-year students. However, I'm not one to say no. So with us being a student-driven center, if students really see this as a need, I welcome any and everyone to come and talk with me, and I'd love to see what might be possible.
Free cookies, sign me up. Seriously, whenever you hear about free food, you better be there, freshmen, okay? Caroline?
So I'm right down the hall from the Women's Center, and I attest to their cookies being delicious. So, you know, one thing that gets to the question that was a little bit earlier is about BC is a Jesuit campus. One thing that our campus does not have is an LGBTQ center. So support for LGBTQ students is housed under student outreach and support. So in my office, we work with a number of different populations. So Rory is part of my office, so disability services. We also work with students who are struggling or having some significant mental health issues on campus or taking medical leaves. But our office too is a place to just come and hang out. Our groups are held in our office. Students come and hang out there. When the retreat is getting started, our student leads are there all the time hanging out. So I really encourage students to just come in. On our website, probably mid next week or late next week, we will have a spot for our first year students to start signing up for Pride Peers, which is our mentoring program, and to just sign up to be on our listserv, get information from us, find out what we're doing, figure out, you know, what kind of our programs are you interested in engaging in. And then we'll be at the Student Involvement Fair, and you can sign up there. It's hard to miss the number of rainbows that we put out, and so you should look for those, and that is the way to get involved.
Great. There's also a question coming through about work study opportunities to do work study within your offices. And I know, Rory, you wanted to add to that as well. Rory and then Cathy.
Yes, I just wanted to add as far as the question about how to get involved. So our student government has a subgroup called the Council for Students with Disabilities, and it's an advocacy group that gets together weekly and discusses disability services policy and how to improve accessibility on campus. And anybody can come to those meetings. And so I send out emails to all registered students letting them know that that group exists, and if they want to get involved and be a part of those meetings to discuss accessibility issues, they're free to do that.
Great. And now going back to that question about work study or jobs within your offices. For work study, that's something that's designated by financial aid, and it's part of your financial aid package, so that if you work on campus, that money will go towards your tuition. And so student employment reaches out to you with those opportunities. Can someone just add on to that within your individual offices? Cathy?
Yes, I was going to say that the Connors Center employs about 100 student employees. Some of them have work study and some of them don't. Most of our employees are tutors in an academic subject, and we do not hire freshmen to be tutors, but we do hire freshmen for our staff at our front desk, and many of them end up becoming tutors. So I would encourage you to come over and use the tutoring service. We're a very friendly place. And if you're, a strong student in your major area, to consider looking for a job for us down the line, sophomore year or later.
Great. Claire?
Yes. Also, as I said, we do hire students as well. We have about 8 to 10 student workers. We hire sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And a typical day for them can be anything. It can be welcoming students at the desk as they walk in. It can be working on any of the programs that I spoke about previously, and also other programs that are listed on our website that I've not mentioned yet. They greet students. They work with our graduate assistants. They work with myself and our director, Cathy Duggan. So it really can be a lot of different things as to what their actual day-to-day looks like, because it can change depending on if there's an event coming up or not.
Perfect. Anyone else want to add to that question? Okay, great. So there's another question coming through. Are your services included in tuition and fees, or do students have to pay extra fees or extra costs to be able to receive your services? Caroline, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, university counseling is a free service. There is no additional fee to come in to see us, and so that's true whether you come in once or many times. I will add that for some students who do choose to purchase the university subscribed health plan, which is a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, we have for a number of years now been able to include a benefit to that plan, which actually has a $0 copay or deductible for mental health services. So people needing more extensive ongoing therapy than might be typical through counseling services that have that plan are able to get very high quality extensive therapy as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, yeah, so all these services, everyone here is a real person on campus, and you'll be able to see them or connect with them in whichever way, on the phone, email, or on campus. And just to go back to a question that you answered earlier, Craig, how long does it take for someone to be seen, to get that first appointment for counseling? I know you already mentioned that earlier, but if you don't mind just reading that again.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a simple question, but it's maybe a little more complicated than that. If you are in crisis, you can see somebody essentially immediately, or talk to somebody essentially immediately, no matter what it is. We have a very high value on access for that high need. For a student who has a sort of urgent problem that they feel like they need to address quickly, that isn't about engaging in an ongoing therapy, but is a specific issue they want to try and sort through in 1 or 2 sessions, again, same day, you can come in and see somebody right away. If somebody's coming in saying, well, gee, I've been in therapy for a year in high school, and I think that was really helpful for me, and I'd like to connect with somebody. Again, it depends a little bit on the time of year. If it's right at the start of the school year, you can probably get a triage appointment within a day and an intake within 2 days after that. If it's in the tail end of a semester when we've been picking up clients through the course of the year, that first triage session might be a day or 2, which is an initial contact, and then scheduled for the beginning of an ongoing therapy, maybe 10 days or 2 weeks, which is pretty standard in the field, whether you're going to see somebody out in the community, or pretty typical for most university counseling centers.
Okay, Great. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, for joining this conversation. Thank you so much to all of you panelists, Cathy, Rory, Craig, Claire, and Caroline, for your time tonight. I hope that you found this conversation to be of value for you. And of course, we were not able to answer every single question. We tried our best. But if any questions come up, please do not hesitate to reach out to the admissions representative. You can find our contact information within your admitted student portal. And you can also reach out to the individuals on the screen. Go to the websites, go to their websites, and you'll be able to find their contact information. And we just want to wish you all of the best. You can view this recording later as well. And please stay tuned with more updates through your admitted student portal. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for joining us, and have a great weekend. Take care.